Yo, it's been a while since we covered pressure and mix-ups on the channel, so I thought it would be nice to bring it back with UI Goku, who has some pretty unique pressure strings with a lot more depth to it than you'd expect. This will complete the guide set for him on my channel, with combos and neutral having been discussed earlier, although that one does have a few changes with the new buffs, so check those out if you haven't, in order to complete your UI Goku training. So let's first go over all his normals and frame data. Startup is in green and frame advantage is in blue. Everything -5 and above on block is considered safe because that allows you to block the fastest 6 frame normal right away. So these are your super safe reset and stopping points. But you'll notice UI's 5L jab is actually -9 on block. Usually a jab should be super safe, but it's unique in that it has massive amounts of block stun and hit stun with pushback. Although point blank 5Ls do lose to a lot of characters, most of the time it can push you back out of reach of their jabs, which technically makes it safe. But its real impact is how it affects his timings, which is the first thing we need to cover. Phase 1 are your true strings, pressing your buttons as fast as you can so they're gapless. The only thing to note here is for a complete gapless string you can end with 2H at J2 to 6L, although this is -7 when you land, so it's not even a safe ender technically. But before we get there, true strings are a bit weaker than manual pressure as covered in my other videos, especially my universal pressure guide 101. Briefly, the reason why is because opponents can hold back while mashing. This lets them block true strings while the mashes comes out if you decide to do anything else. So if you try to go for universal mix-ups by altering true strings into assist and then trying to land a 6M DR etc., they're countering all that while blocking the true string plus assist. Mashing is just a term that refers to pressing anything other than block, not just late attacks but also jumps, vanishes, etc. This is the first thing we want to target with our frame traps, manually leaving out very small windows in which the startup of their mashes start to come out, but not fully until your frame trap hits before it gets active. Since active defense is the first layer of interaction you'll see, you'll have to master this, but due to 5L's insane block stun, a slight delay 5L into medium is not enough to frame trap. As I showed earlier, it takes quite a while for their normal to come out after 5L because of the block stun, so you need a big delay to actually get a tight frame trap. Mediums is the main frame trap. You can't 5L into 2L consistently since the pushback can make it with. Only close 5L into 2L right away can work, and doing 5L delay L, frame trapping with the second hit of auto combo can be nice to low profile their 2L and 2Ms, sure, but if they're mashing or fuzzy mashing 2Hs, which is common for better players to do against UI to cover his flip and super dash mixes that we'll see later, it can get anti-arid countered. Frame trapping 5L with 2Ls and 2Ls with 5L and 5LL are common frame traps for other characters that they can do, but it's better to focus on mediums with UI for more control. Basically, once they get hit by these frame traps, they start to realize they're getting punished for mashing. So they'll build up some fear and then opt to stick the safer blocking option since you don't risk anything for blocking, or instead try out some different mind games with reversals or reflex, both allowing you to pressure reset, which is restarting your pressure back to 0 with 5L. However, to really maximize pressure resets, we want the rhythm between 5L frame trap and 5L stop 5L to feel the same as each other, timing it so that both hit at around the same time as each other. Due to his huge cancel window on the 5L to frame trap, the delay to get back into 5L is much longer than that of a tight frame trap medium. You need a big medium delay to match the reset of a 5L, which leaves you more vulnerable though. So while big delayed frame traps do deal with delayed mashes and match the rhythm timing for reset into 5L, it does mean there's a bigger gap for opponents to interact in with like quicker 5Ls and stuff. The importance of aligning them is that it makes it harder for opponents to differentiate between your options, so you're keeping them under your control on defense. It's crazy because on the other hand, 2L is super quick, right? So it's much easier to implement quick tight pressure with 2L, where the frame traps need to be pressed much earlier than 5L into frame trap. So 2L, 2L, 2L frame trap with 2L, 2L frame trap with 2M or 5M, or reset into 2Ls with dashes, they can all be manipulated to match each other at a faster pace, but can also be manually slowed down as you please with stops for baits and such, especially since 2L is a 7 frame normal at a safe -4. 2L into 2M is not only a solid frame 1 frame trap, but it's also a strong anti-reflect, only if it has stronger ranges though, which is another difference from 5L 2M. So 2L 2M is not your point where you want to bait because there's always that frame 1 gap between them. 2L 5M is what you want to go into if you want to true string that. However, they both need to work in tandem together. 5L 5L pushes you away, but 2L's forward advances bring you back forward in for pressure. You just need to master your timings between the quicker pace available on 2L and the slower rhythm forced on 5L. Once you get the timings down, we can upgrade the usage of the lights. Of course, adding in universal mix-ups to your lights like cross-up, 6M, same size, etc. are good, in which cross-up GM is super nice, mixing in with the same size super dashes against stronger opponents who can react. IADs in the corners are strong as usual, abusing respectful opponents with fake outs into lows, where you can do JM JH whiff into 2L for a super tricky fake out, but just altering the double high JM JL with JM 2L and stuff like that can be a really effective mix, to be honest. But because of the pushback you can get with 5L, this allows you to set up far away 6Ms, which becomes plus on block that we'll cover in a second. The universal 5L jab into DR is a bit slower for UI, 4 frames slower than what it should be universally, but if you slightly delay pressing DR after its 5L, it comes out at the regular DR speed as usual, making it harder to tech. And then when you develop your pressure, adding it alongside dashes for even quicker DRs and stuff like that, it gets really hard to tech. And it's important to layer your dragon rushes because UI is heavily dependent on using DRs for his mix-ups, especially as DR crushes that we'll see soon. But one thing to note is that on techs in the corner, JH336H is a good DR tech counter. Not only does it cover and absorb multiple actions your opponents might throw at you, but it's also plus if they block, allowing you to string JL and continue your turn. 5LL helps to hit confirm on resets with 5L or 2L 5L frame trap. While 5LL as a frame trap isn't the best, you can just true string 5L into 5L and then frame trap after that or reset, since this is also safe at -5. So if you're resetting later on in your string, 5M's double hits are safer at -5, but 2M is a bit worse at -7. And a tip, whenever you're resetting or baiting by stopping your pressure, you can hold back while pressing jab or back plus low jab, and this will let you block in case they do mash to keep you safe from mashes or DPs and reversals. Also adding in dash resets to further manipulate your timings and extend it as you please. Something interesting is if you ever trade when you reset into 5L, the massive 5L hit stun usually lets you win these scenarios. Now with mediums, 5M is a double hitting into a true low, so canceling the first hit with 6M is a simple mix up to add on to your gameplay. But more importantly to note besides their resets is that for spaced out pressure, 5M typically brings you in while 2M keeps you far away. So 5L 2M patterns can be good not only for frame traps, but to keep you far away to make them think they have space to jump out, thinking you're too far, and then bam, pressuring from far. Or it can be helpful to set up a plus on block 6Ms. The spacing can make IED options for left rights more ambiguous as a cross-ups. And remember to frame trap after the 2M with delayed 5M as well to really layer your pressure and keep it flowing all together. And then if you get too far out, use 5M to get closer, in which 2L can be a good duo with that as well. We covered how combining all four with varying speeds can help, but varying distances can also come into play. It's all up to you to elicit what type of response and feeling you want your opponents to feel. Once you pass his mediums, his pressure structure changes a bit once again. 6S becomes a good tool to branch into, even as a delay tool to be a frame trap of its own, since they can catch things like vanishes if mashed. If they block the entire key blast at the end, you can end up with +6 on block, which lets you effectively reset back into 5M in the corner for a tight overextended pressure. This can catch jumps in the corner, not exactly frame trapping them though, and just barely loses to frame 4 reversals. But since you're so plus, a beautiful dash block can come in to bait those options. Or to even layer in dashes with DRs, which hits extremely fast, or dash in IADs, etc. If you whiff the first set of 6S, you're a bit less plus at +4 if they actually do block it, but it does keep you closer to land 5L and stuff in the corner to overextend your pressure. But that's after they block the entire part, so we need to get them to block it after the first part in between that interactable area using our frame trap. So 6S has massive cancel window, meaning you can flexibly chain into other normals at multiple different timings. Doing 6S plus 5H right away is a natural frame 1 frame trap. No timing involved, and this is effective for those who don't want to hold that plus on 6 situation and want to disrespect by jumping out or mashing. This is your first 6S layer. One of the reasons why you want to use 5H after 6S is because 5L or 5H prior to its usage might space you out, so 6S whiffs sadly. But because it's a frame 1 frame trap, you must remember that this is always an interactable point in your pressure. This is not the place you want to use base to braid out frame 1 reversals, since you can't hide this gap and reflects, but there are more 6S layers to handle that with flips later. After 5H, you can pair 5S, which is another frame 1 frame trap interactable point, and you can delay even more to target delayed mashes. This is a slower frame trap at other points, but can be nice to pair after 5M to interrupt that double hitting point. So fellas will be discouraged to mash reflects on that 5M 5S part to reflect the 5S, because that second hit of the 5M can punish their reflex by true stringing into a low, right? And when you use it at other points of frame trap, you can hit them from with 5H mid-screen for a combo. Although 6S 5H is better than 5S 5H, since it has such a big gap, but it's still able to win trades in the corner sometimes, you know what I'm saying? But 5S as an ender is also -5 on block while creating huge distance, especially mid-screen, making it a much safer ending point than 2H J236L from earlier that required an assist to keep you safe. But again, it is a fixed frame 1 aspect, so this isn't something you want to use too often when reversals are a possibility that's on your mind to bait. It can also trade with Ki Blast, funnily enough. So once you establish these frame traps after success, then you can rotate in your base appropriately. The only effective baits are flips though, since that's the only other way to cancel the multi-hits of 6S, and 5H is so minus, unable to block after 5H, but we'll see that later. And then when they get scared of the frame traps, that's when you can go back to the 6S plus frames that we covered earlier. But that's if you can get them to block both hits. Also, because of 6S's speed and attractive hitbox, it can also stuff lyrics and stuff in neutral at times, funnily enough. 2 or 3S isn't really good in pressure since it's so negative at -9 and just flat out whiffs on smalls. But if they stand, I guess 3S can be interesting as another way to close the gap when you're too far if you want it to go into 2H's as a frame trap. 2H itself used to be very hard to punish, especially versus smaller fellas, low-key making just 2H safer than 2H into special, since they're forced to dash block afterwards. Because if they try to pursue too far in, that's when 214H on reaction can come in as like an active counter. Or if they just don't know the mashup, 214L options come in as well. But in this day and age, it's too easy to punish this fool with just dash blocking. Before we continue, let's cover Seth's specials, starting with his flips, then dash, then how they all work together to pressure. 4 flips on the basics. If you hold them, you only get the flip part. Held 214L never crosses over. 214M can be held up to 3 flips, that does cross over, and H only has 2 flips when held. You can hold back to flip backwards on these, but the end always triggers a dash that goes towards the opponent. And you can mix back with 4 flips together. The longer you wait as you accumulate flips, the more damage the follow-up moves do. H's initial flip counts as 1 extra on top of the 2 flips he has for the damage buffs on the triggers. Heavy is also frame 4 invul at the start, and the rest of it, holding it, is just projectile invul on the flips, which is nice against supers. And you can't hold flips in the air. But now for the follow-up branches. Just 214L, or tap L after flips, has great scaling on hit like a medium starter, especially if you charge it up with extra flips beforehand. But more importantly, it's +3 on block, meaning they can't smash afterwards. Your 5L counters all that. After they get used to blocking this, doing dash blocks afterwards to contain defensive options and bait them out safely can be good, especially if the character has a DP that they haven't thrown out in a while. However, it can get 2H pretty consistently on reaction, especially if you keep doing it and they see it coming. 214M, or tapping M after flips, on the other hand, is the opposite by being a command grab. Because of the way it works, just 214M actually beats conventional 2H's if point blank. Just be careful of quicker double hitting and non-grounded 2H's. So you can already see how you can mix in the two to throw off your opponents off guard and play that mental battle. 214M holding back can be nice if you need to keep the corner when your back is to the corner or something. Pressing H whenever during your flips is huge for callouts, since they can't beat 2H and actually counters it. This is also the only way to punish vanishes or guard cancels after flips on reaction, even countering Spark. Speaking of Spark, doing strings like 5M into 214H to hard bait Sparks are sick as well. If a super or DP or something comes out while you're flipping, it can be nice to combo instead of vanishing after 214L for more bar, but 214M is a better meterless conversion as well. If you do land a grounded hit, you can actually mix in resets. So after 214H, you can do a meaty 5M for a low on the second hit. The second hit actually resets, so you get an unskilled starter on that low. Then you can do 5M into cross-ups or same size, since you can jump cancel 5M on hit. But that's the most common option people go for because everyone always blocks lows because they don't want to get reset to an unskilled starter. And then they mash 2H to counter this common cross-up option, so doing delayed frame trap or 6M can be nice to actually counter those 2H's. You can even throw DRs in as like a big reset, which is actually pretty nice due to the extra meter you gain from the Dragon Rush. Or if you want to add assists, 5M into 6M makes it better because it looks like you're going for a cross-up, but it counter hits 2Hs. Although you do just trade one skilled combo for another skilled combo, so resets aren't that amazing in general. Or call an assist right as the 5M is going to reset for a 50-50, since you can jump cancel it, including super jump mix-ups, but that's for later. On block though, this does recover in the air, where you're able to do an air action or another flip, although all your normals need to recover when they land. Doing another 214H can be nice to punish early punishment attempts, but this one is 2Hable in the air. All the flips can be done in the air, but again, they're all 2Hable. These other air flips can be nice to add after cross-ups or JH or something, but it does make it very interactable. 214L is the only one that doesn't need to be recoverable and is plus on block after that 214H, but again, is 2Hable. Although it can be nice to throw them off guard if you cover it with an assist or something and then overextend your turn. If you land before canceling, even with a super dash or calling an assist or doing anything, you have 10 frames of recovery for them to punish. That's why dash blocking after a block 214H or 2H is good to deal with everything by making options with and being in range to react to UI and punish it. And finally, pressing S. S is interesting as another quick cross-up, especially from 214H pressing S, which can be confirmed with Super Dash or 5L in the corner for huge output meterlessly after the beam, especially if you land the super unrealistic pre-flips to charge it up. And what's interesting is that if they do block the beam, yeah, it just on vanish and you get those universal plus frames, but it's also -5 on block. Most beams are unsafe at this close range, but UI can simply just block safely if you block it. It's also cool because S maintains its invulnerability against projectiles as well, just worth noting. Now that we know how his flips work, there are 3 specific scenarios to cover, 2 in which makes them stronger. So first of all, fuzzy jumping is what people recommend to do on reactions to flips. It blocks everything, escapes the grab, so it's a good option to select to not get hit, right? Well, the thing is, blocking the L flip while you're jumping leads to being +9. At this huge frame advantage, doing 2L actually is true strings, bypassing reflex by the way, so pretty much guaranteeing plus frame. 5L can be used, but it's a bit less consistent. So jumping up where you'll block it makes it easier for the UI Goku player. They don't have to worry about reversals or reflex at all on their plus frames, not even needing to alter and dash blocks to bait those options or hesitate as the pressure here just always going to 2-0. So you lose any interaction that you could have after a block 214L for jump blocking it, reducing your defensive edge. And that makes his other options from plus frames even tighter. Additionally, this is where holding 214M into L is effective. A lot of people get the fuzzy jump part, but forget to switch sides, you know? So you might actually land a hit here. Even if you don't get the hit, you still make contact with the delayed jump part since it's a fuzzy jump, and then you secure those higher plus frames. The extra benefit you get from holding the flip is that you get time to make a read. If they fuzzy jump, you go into L and then confirm from there. You have time to see something start up for H for a follow-up. You can even fire a beam and call an assist if you need to extend. Even M grab if they're just super out of it and then respecting and staying grounded too much. On top of getting that buff for charging it up at least one initial flip. If you really want to abuse this and push pressure theoretically, adding bad flips can also act as a fake out for a cross-up flip, looking like you will cross up except holding back keeps you same side. That could be interesting when pairing with a held H flip, but it's not really useful, just something interesting, I guess. More importantly though, this can lead to huge DR crushes. Because UI's regular 5L DR has such a slow tempo, it works great as a primer to let opponents see it coming. That way they'll be looking for it. A big part of UI's gameplay is to go for these DRs for combos and also having good options after DR techs, but also so you can get into these DR crushes. Against good opponents who are able to tech DRs consistently, this is when you can use their strong defensive reactions to your advantage. So doing 5L214H, the EX flash appears, which looks and sounds just like a DR circle pop, in which you can do 214HL to beat Dragon Rush tech attempts, and this hits 3 frames faster than the regular 214L with added damage. This DR crush is actually a pretty solid TOD starter with enough meter as well, so you get a huge punish for actually being good at the game and teching Dragon Rushes, goddamn. The only thing is that people who tech with 2H can technically fuzzy mash the 2H with delayed mashing while blocking to also deal with 214HL. But remember how 214M counters 2H's? Yeah, you can flip those in. DR crushing with a grab is brutal, bro. Cause what if they don't end up reacting or teching that DR? It's kind of like guaranteeing a grab either way. However, the strongest DR crush is with beam, since it crosses up while hitting DR attempts, while hitting 2H's sometimes, even fuzzy jump if they don't block the right directions as a cross-up, and is a meterless confirm unlike 214L that requires you to spark or vanish or assist. If you're really worried about a perfectly timed fuzzy 2HOS in reaction to DR crushes though, 214H into H is a huge call out for that. Even adding DR crushes after dashes to layer dash DRs against the strongest opponents that you can face. And this is one of the safest DR crushes in the game, since even if they do quick mashes right away, you avoid it, you're staying safe. Same with DPs and reversals and reflects, staying safe, giving you time to keep flipping if you need to counter and read the situation as well. Like I said, not even jumps safely counters the situation because of doing L for the huge plus frames, but this one you can't really make the read on reaction as well, so if the UI commits to something else and you guess right with your counter option, you can get away with it. That's why it's best as a UI Goku player to alternate your options, and so should the defending player, so that way the UI player can't keep track of tendencies and habits, so both players are kind of making that mind game, you know. And if the UI player isn't confident in what to branch into, you might see less of those bigger options like the M grab, since it has more recovery if they whiff, right? So they'd be more scared to use it. Again, if you can land this with your back to the corner, you can get even crazier conversions, and that's where the last flip options come in, which is using it defensively. Remember, 214H is a frame 4 reversal. Frame 4 reversals can be good on defense with bigger gaps in pressure, mostly after 6Ms or vanishes or plus frames, whenever you have a window to interact it. But it gets crazy, you can always hold 214H to mix from defense. This is especially good when they dash block to bait and punish the 214H, but you can hold the 214H. A common option is 214H into S, since that hits cross up and covers a lot more options while being able to hit confirm. So on their vanishes, on their plus frames, they're too scared to pressure you. It feels like you're pressuring them. Although things like backdash to jump away are huge callouts to preemptively avoid all the flip stuff, but if you don't 214H, then you get a free reset. This is why it gets really good after Oki, because even if they stage jump on Oki, they'd block 214H, but 214HS crosses up super fast. They'd have to block cross up. It's strong in the corner, since not only do you flip the corner advantage, but also get that good 5L or 5M confirm more consistently. Super strong to pair with the tech to avoid tight Oki. Avoid some meaties, and you can get your counters off more reliably. I don't recommend this on super tight Oki like level 3 setups or tight setups, since it's a frame 4 thing, not a frame 1 thing, so you might get hit out of it, but it is super handy. You can then mix in 214H into L. While the output isn't as good since you need an assist or vanish, it does secure the plus frames when they do save jump and block after their meaties. And remember, holding flips goes through projectiles, so even if they try to Oki with assist, you can kind of bypass that sometimes. Another thing though, this is more of a neutral related thing, a lot of people jump away as a hard read on the flips, and then from there they wait until after you branch out into something to punish. Because if they try to punish too early while flipping, you can react with H to punish their approaches. But that's why sometimes if you see this, it's better to just flip into nothing. Wait till the flips run out, and then they could end up being too late for the punish because they're just waiting for a huge call out visually to see, right? Remember, you can then 214H again pretty late, or even 2-2S or 2H to counter super late approaches. So punishing UI can be a bit harder if you don't actually branch into one of his flip options when they jump away. Because the flip is so strong defensively, this allows him to just go for 5L when he's at a disadvantage. So he's able to mash one minus, and then that hits more often. And this is why the latex mashes become stronger in UI's hands, because they're so worried about the EX flip. So their plus frames practically become UI's plus frame, getting away with a turn of his own. So mastering this mind game lets him turn obvious minus frames into his plus frames. And lastly, his godly display dash. Then we'll see how everything works together to pressure. So for a circle forward, light is a frame 1 frame trap, needing to vanish or Z-tag in order to combo, but delay that Z-tag. At a basic level, this can be seen later on in the string, but it whiffs further away like after 5S strings. That's where 236H comes in for a better combo, still keeping a tight frame trap property but covering more distance. It may not always be worth the bar though. It's not just a frame trap, it's an invincible safe frame trap because of how you vanish where you can't be hit during the animation. It's nice because with some timings on other frame traps, you might get hit right before it if your timings are bad, making it harder to get the exact timing every time, but the invul aspect of 226L makes it more consistent to frame trap. Being a natural frame trap with that frame 1 gap means they can always DP and reversal through it, right? So you have to be careful, right? No, it's safe. It safely goes through these DPs and reversals and even level 3s. This doesn't work after 6S or further strings because the spacing doesn't let him go behind the opponent during their DP trigger. Although this does work with 236H just fine because of the extended distance it travels. The only exceptions are counters that triggers after getting hit and super fast reversals that hit on both sides. So these counters include Cooler, Jiren, UI, and Videl, right? With frame 1 counters on their side. There are some supers and DPs that beat 236L, like Cell, Gogeta 4 in the corner or close by, and base Vegeta. And some can be both 236L and 236H with Beerus, DBS Broly, and Android 17. Although Reflect on the other hand is the only universal answer to counter this tech if used too much, but we'll get back to this, so remember that. The real pressure aspect is not when it's used as a frame trap. That is a bonus, yeah, but it's putting you in negative frames on purpose. It's at a safe -2 taking the corner. You think this puts you at a disadvantage, right? But this is what UI wants because we can now get into 214H. Everyone knows you can punish this, so it gives you an obvious come hit me bro signal to the opponent, in which all the EX flip stuff we spoke about earlier comes in. So the first thing you want to fire is just a regular EX flip to counter when they try to attempt to punish you, and then you can get into the 214H held into the branches. This does have hard timing into it though. This is great in the corner to get that super strong beam confirmed that I've been talking about, and when they see this they start to hesitate because they get punished by 214H for trying to punish you, and then they start adding in dash blocks or they may want to jump away. And remember, you're able to react to things by holding the flips into other branches like L's to handle the jumps. But this is where you can abuse the respect you create with just flat out 5L. Once they start hesitating to press to punish, 5L is another way to overextend. UI is one of the only characters next to like Jiren and Hit that basically turns their minus frames into mental plus frames. And when they see that 5L being pressed when they're minus, they get annoyed that you're abusing negative frames, which incites them to mash again on your dash next time, and then boom, 214H you're head top. Just be careful of doing the branch 214H options without strict timing. It can lead to weird traits sometimes, but it's a continuous cycle of mind games. Reaching layers where crossing up a dash blocks with IDJM can come in, or dash DRs to get past super patient opponents, and more. And if you're mid-screen, you can also add back dashes to this like vanishes for a safer turn ending option if you don't want to use your meter or go into that mind game and just want to reset. Usually in online games, seeing a UI do 5L right away after their first dash makes me think, yeah, this man don't understand this encounter. But seeing them do 214HL after their first dash and continue their turn, yeah, that gets me stressing, bro, because what do you mean on the next dash you might cross a beam or grab or 5L or just 214H if I try to interact? A good UI can keep you blocking for forever if pairing these tools correctly. But the limitation is meter. That's why UI is so good with meter to get access to those EX moves, because once he loses access to that half a bar, he can't really do those strong patterns. Speaking of bar, if you're able to alternate the aspect of spaced out 236H with the regular 236Ls, that's how you also bypass the reflect situation. That pressure pattern is so strong, which is why we reflected to just avoid it, but if you space out 236L, you end up in front of them, meaning the reflect gets baited. So some examples of auto time strings mid-screen is 6S, 5S, and then go into dash, or 5H, 5S into dash, and there's also 5LL, 5H, 5S, and then into the dash, and all of these space it out so it whips. The corner is a bit harder to set this up, where you need to set up spaced out pressure manually with back dashes with 5S and stuff, but that's why you want to be obvious with your 236L placement sometimes, so they auto time into reflecting where you can get the most damage as possible without spending any bar. By the time they see the unexpected dash, their reaction is to block the other side, but over abusing that respect lets you 5L on the same side before they're even ready. When they mash, that's when frame traps or 236H needs to be altered in to actually punish them for thinking you're gonna whiff. But with respect and proper ambiguous rhythm when used rarely, whiff 236L can even go into 214H stuff. You're pressuring heavily off of whiff moves, bro. Adding in that same size 6M or DR out of nowhere after a whiff as they scramble to understand which side you're on, or even adding dashes to bait out the supers and sparks come in. And what's also nice about that, it starts to regenerate assists, so this can be nice against really patient, good defensive players to abuse respect and build your assists back again to hit them with 50-50. This is also the only instance 236M can come in. Usually it's too slow to be a safe frame trap, but from further distances it can hit them out if they try to do like a delayed jump. 6S into the medium dash can also be good because it spaces you out to be cleared of mashes as well, so you don't get punished. And the last option is alternating in 6S with 2 through 6L and H, and that can kind of catch jumps to be +4 on block, which can be good for reactionary things, although 6S into 5H is a good frame trap to handle that jump option. So a lot of tougher opponents who are expecting either a whiff or EX hit get hit by a meterless 2 through 6M instead. It can also be used if you really push your manual spaced out pressure far away, where 2S can come in 2, I suppose, if they jump, or 3S to get back in close and then use the light version of the dash. But this is starting to get really advanced and not too practical against most regular opponents, although this does show insane UI Goku mastery. And since we're talking about 5Hs and how 6S spaces UI out, the last 6S tech is using it before a 214L or into delayed 214M. The distance it creates actually makes both of these hit in front, mixing them up. Usually you'd be able to tell which side you get hit on, which is another way to react to the L or M option, but adding 6X prior to it makes them both feel the exact same. And then throw in double flips to really bit off fuzzy jumps or mashes for an H input to punish and stuff. So when you pair all of this together with different rhythms, going from super slow control to purposeful minus frames to abuse or inside pressure, to super fast to make them feel unease while blocking, or keep the pressure going by giving them endless mind games to handle, manual cross-ups, DR crushes, plus frames, showing them a 214H can come out to punish if they mash 5L, covered with assists, getting fast, big fast, dash, EX plus frames at the slow DR crush, DR, you teched it, J236H to continue plus frames. Yeah, there's a lot of insane counters and limitless actions you can target if you master your timings and options. Just remember, everyone is different, so you need to be mindful of their tendencies and weaknesses in order to effectively target them. Sometimes frame traps is enough, sometimes you need to go into the crazy more advanced stuff. A few last notes before mix-ups. So for clashes, these usually occur after 6Ms on block, since 6 frames can hit each other, but UI doesn't have a fast jab to engage in the universal clash war, which is 4LL and then your second fastest normal or reflect, etc. UI's fastest normal is 6S at 6 frames. This can out prioritize some clash wars at times, but usually gets stuffed after the first clash because you can't cancel 6S into 6S again. It does win against people with 7 frames who try to compete, although there's always backstep to worry about. But when you do clash and head into 6S, you can go into 6H on reaction or 214H more importantly. But again, on 6Ms you can avoid the clash by backdashing when on the corner, reflecting, or just doing the EX flip mind game right after blocking 6M. Remember, holding the flip on mashes can be inconsistent, especially here, but backward flips mid-screen low-key is solid. And then they start to jump away in case you do it, and then you don't have to worry about anything, just reset to neutral. 6S can also be kind of useful on those plus on block 6Ms to hit super meaty, although if you're too far it will whiff anyways. But if you ever see clashes in other scenarios, branching into 6S right away is a move if you train for it, or train yourself to go into EX flip right away. EX flip into medium is also nice to avoid the reflect and backstep options as well. Few notes for defense: when you're getting pressure, 2S is a frame 1 anti-air that deals with crossups hitting both sides. There's also unrestrained will by holding DR button on text. It can be vanish for blue life on hits, but when you get blocked, if you vanish you get 2H, you can't go for counter super. But dash block deals with all of that, so spark is the safest to do if it gets blocked. If you end up autopiloting into spark and then realize you get hit, you can go to level 1 or empty vanish level 3 for like 45% of their HP, which is good if they're close to dying, but it's all blue life, so be careful of that. Another safe but expensive option is to level 1 to another character's level 1. Some are safe depending on your teammates and GHC spacings, but if they just vanish, they can ignore this whole interaction for the most part. Adding in more defensive tools just makes it easier for your mashes to come out. 6H is a bit weaker. The frame advantage varies on distance and which frames the counter activates on, but you're always safe to block, so it's still minus after a close range 5L, but you can keep doing it if they trigger into higher priority slower normals like mediums into heavies, and then you can finally punish something. A lot of people like to vanish after seeing a dodge, so you can do 2H or 2S into TOD, and then on aerial 6Hs, if they vanish, you need to do J214H. Needed to be inputted earlier in the opposite direction, so here it feels like a 236H input, which is another display of elite UI Goku mastery being shown. And you can just use 6H almost whenever you can 214H since they're both frame 4, but 214H is better since you get the mix and stuff, right? Now, a few last notes that I want to cover is spark pressure. The other guys didn't really have this because we didn't have spark cancels, but UI can spark cancel to pressure. Every time you do flip into beam and they block it, you can cancel into forward beam and backward beams to add 3 beams during your pressure, making it harder to punish if the first one is blocked or reflected. All 3 beams hit on the same side though. If you do 236S or 214S right away, not as a branch from the flips, you can only get 2 beams. From there, you can kind of go for beams into 236 cancel, specifically J236M if you're too far, or eventually the 214 cancels with aerial 214H can come in again as a frame trap call out to establish respect after your special, so you can actually layer in just 5L afterwards, you know, extending off those minus frames, especially since J214H can help punish once they think you ran out of specials, right? And makes 214H harder to punish. Wild. To abuse respect, you can link 214H into 214M or 214L, which can be super quick and unexpected. But if you do 214H health flip to start, you can do 214H again in your string, so be careful about that. On the ground, it just makes for super quick left-right cancels, adding in 2-2S which true strings after the dashes. Even if they reflect an aspect of dash, the next dash can continue to keep it tight, preventing them from interacting. But you only have 3 dashes in a row that you can use. And if you pair the dashes with flips, you can get really confusing left-right layers, which are just very fast and hard to handle, you know. And whenever after these dashes, you can get back into the pressure from earlier with EX flip plus frames or just 5L jab to overextend, and even dash with mid screen, really pairing everything together to go crazy. Spark cancels are sick, but there's also universal things like jump canceling any normals for quick left rights. Confirm 6M by yourself solo, especially after 5M because they expect the IEDs to come out and then 6M punishes the 2Hs. This sets up 6S into super jump IEDs for cheeky ambiguous left right solo. And then holding S can also help you get those super jump IEDs after the 6S. With assist, this gets very dangerous. Your DR crushes become that much scarier to handle because if they do manage to block it, UI's turn isn't done yet. By pairing the spark cancels on top of universal pressure, it can get really sick. A really cool spark cancel is on 2Hs as well because they're so used to on that 2 hits and then to try to punish it, but then you can IED after that, although it does have some recovery on landing. With all that on the way, sometimes it's better to just true string lows, reset 2 2Ms in since they keep expecting the highs to come and then they open up with the lows. Sadly, after beam into empty vanish, you can't secure a meaty JH or 50-50 like some characters, but you can kind of layer in the flip mind games with EX flip. And then from there, they'd be too scared to interact because of 214H, and then that makes JHs land. It can be better by adding 5S with some assists, and some 5S timings actually let the empty vanish appear on the other side, which can be very mixy. And now it's time for some mix-ups that I'll briefly cover. UI has a ton of ways to overextend his pressure to actually regain the assist. That's why people don't like blocking UI all day, because he can regenerate those assists and then start mixing you and forcing you to guess. That's why they interact, and that's why your frame traps land, you know? The first one being the universal super dash plus assist mix in the corner. So you risk getting your super dashes 2H whenever in your string. So you gotta make sure to punish them with frame traps to limit their 2Hs and be more ambiguous with when you do it. And then you call the assist after your super dash connects to true string your air dash high jet L or land low 2L, a high low 50-50. If you get 2H and you're being too obvious, mix in your frame traps and change your timings around. Sometimes I like to fuzzy 2H, in which you need to delay your frame traps even more. What's interesting is that he is one of the very few characters that can super dash plus assist mix mid screen with some assists, because usually the low part will whiff, right? But this works with like Android 17, GT Goku B, etc. So having it mid screen is another thing that boosts his pressure and mix factor. This one usually requires you to cancel 5M right before the low hits connects, so you're closest to the opponent. But assist like 17 barrier keeps you safe, so it's kind of like true stringing a mix basically. Mid screen, like most people, you can set up assist plus super jump IED for left right high lows with a high block stun, but it's better to do this after 5M since it's less minus than on your other normals later on. The strongest version of this super jump IED is after 214L plus assist. Since you're so plus on block, you can IED hella early to make this high low super jump a true mix with lower blocks and assists. And you can hold S during the 214L animation, since when you hold S and then do do a jump, it becomes a super jump, so that gives you access to super jump IEDs more easily. This one can work with assists as low as 35 frames of block stun. Sometimes you might need to delay the timing of your assist if you hit them on their jump, so that way they can land into the assist kinda. What's cool is that some assists can help hit confirm if you do 214L or protect the 214L like barrier, so that kinda buffs up 214L's usage as well, giving you mix on block, meterless conversions, and keeping you safe. With maximal block stun at like 55 frames, then you can set up universal 50-50 where you jump up or super jump up into fast fall for a low or late air dash for a high. Can add in floats for a 4-way mix up if you learn the right timings with your assist, but that's just universal stuff. In Spark, you can jump cancel earlier, so these mix-ups will work with lower block stun. And it's okay if you leave a bit of a gap for the jump, similar to Super Dash plus Assist Mix, where you call the assist after to cover your normals. And another version of this is called the assist, so that your JH can land, saving your air dash, and then after the JH connects, you can do your air dash, since Spark lets you dash cancel your air JH on block. Remember the corner DR tech from earlier using that EX special? Well, now if you call assist as you land, you can air dash high or land low for a 50-50, the assist kind of holds them down. Securing 50-50 off a tech is crazy. And be careful of the mashup, because some things can beat that EX move of yours, and others can counter hit it if you leave the smallest of gaps in between the assist, and others can escape it. 3 more mix-ups kinda. He has a tick throw with his new solo thing being 5L, 6L, or holding 6 the entire time, which lets the second hit whiff into the grab. This makes it a lot more reactable and less safe, but if used rarely, it can surprise opponents solo, since UI's primary solo goal is to overextend pressure. With low blocks and assists, this turns into a 50-50 with the right timing. Usually pressing 5L, assist L, delay L, where the assist overrides the block stun, so the third L grabs them instantaneously, which is a true 50-50 mix with 2M if they guess it's a grab and try anything to avoid the grab like jumping or super dash. The only downside is that most people would rather just get grabbed for low damage instead of the big 2M. And after dashes, you can pair assist in for cheeky stealing the corner pressure with same side IEDs or crossups. Depending on the block stun, this can be tight enough to prevent them from being able to 2H or jump out after the dash. Some allows for cursed ambiguous super dashes to land that they can't 2H, but the dash back jam can whiff, so be careful of that. Or when you whiff 236L in their face, you can call an assist to be super meaty if they try to punish. Last one is 2-ish delay J236H plus assist, which can hit as a cross up mid-screen with fast assist, funny enough. Call the assist earlier to hit same side, call it later to cross up. The light version can work if they're crouching, but doesn't work if they're stand blocking, which is most of the case. It's not a 50-50 or anything, but it is kind of cool. Similarly, you can add assist before your double flips to cover it and make it very tight, forcing them to block same side beam or cross up L, where they're unable to 2H or jump out or anything if you have enough block zones with the right timings. I'm pretty sure with 35 frames this can make it very tight. So this can be kind of considered putting them in a guess, and then if they block it, then you still have your turn to go, which is really useful. And that about wraps it up, man. I was gonna include Oki, but this was longer than I expected, so expect a shorter Oki video that will be uploaded tomorrow or sometime soon. And I'll also cook up a quick summary shorts video for UI's pressure if you guys want to check that out in a minute format. Expect that to be out soon as well. Take your time learning this. Feel free to watch multiple sections and practice it before moving on to more advanced concepts and stuff. And depending on who you play again, you might not even need some of these crazier parts, although it is good to know about and be aware of how much UI can push his own pressure. Thank y'all for watching, and yeah, share your thoughts down below, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.